Serious, Reddit, what are some of the reasons you have had to cut ties with former friends? She and her husband were renting my basement after they got married. Fully finished basement with bedroom and bathroom for $200 per month. They both worked full-time but never paid rent on time, constant messes in the kitchen and garage. Eventually I asked them to move out within 90 days. A month before the move-out date they gave me a sob story about not having enough for a security deposit on an apartment. I gave them the last month free to help. While I was on vacation they went out and bought a ducking boat. Not a rowboat, a Mastercraft ski boat. 2 years old. They still had not moved out by that point. After calling and confronting them they quickly hung up on me and blocked me on social media and their phones. 10 years of considering her my sister and even living with her for 4 years evaporated with one phone call. We haven't spoken since. They, 28 and 30, live in her parents' basement now and I still get collection notices for them in my mail. I got sick of being the last person they wanted to hang out with. One of them called me a cunt and I realized I didn't like my friends that much. What did you do then after getting sick with them? You just stopped talking to them completely? So one of them called you a cunt because you refused to talk to them? I am asking because I'm in the same situation too. When I realized that being around them was something I had to recover from. I still very much care about these people and want the best for them, just from a distance. Good friend of mine got too into party drugs and then started doing a bit of selling. Before I knew what he was up to, I ended up having 2 incidents when out with him. One time we were taken to a back room by bouncers who tried to shit us up and then not long after, I was followed by some other dealers whose territory my mate had sold in and I was given a proper pasting with a baseball bat or similar blunt weapon. Had to turn my back on him at that point but within the next year, he had given up drugs and the party scene in general and I was back in contact with him. He is now about 10 years clear of it and a rare success story of someone who goes off the deep end with drugs and starts selling and manages to turn it around. When they try to take advantage of me, I generally try to help when I can, especially if it means reconnecting with a close friend of mine. Freshman year of college I was texting my best friend from high school. He was saying how he just dropped out and was looking for work or a new college to attend. Told him I would help him look for a nursing program for him. We kept in touch for a bit and then that first summer break he texted me asking for an update on the nursing program. Told him I hadn't found anything because I didn't have that much time between baseball, physical therapy, and summer classes. When I asked how the search was going for him he told me he didn't have time for that shit and that I needed to look more. I have no problem trying to help someone out, but that was just too much. When they only came to me when they had a problem but when I had a problem they're nowhere to be found. I helped a former friend pack up and move twice. I watched her kids so she could work part-time while her husband was serving overseas. I even sat her cats when she went out of town and helped her wrap her kids' Christmas presents. But, when I asked her to help me pack a few boxes when I was 9 months pregnant she laughed in my face. I thought she was joking. I asked her again, I had everything all set, I was just too big by then to put things into the boxes and she responded angrily that she had already told me no once, how dare I ask again. Friendship over. In the end I was constantly walking on eggshells with her. I was afraid of her getting mad at me but it was almost unavoidable because she was so short-tempered. If anything didn't work out the way she had wanted it to it wasn't good, her mood dropped and I was her punching pillow. Always tried to cheer her up again but it would never work, she'd only keep on complaining. But if I had any issues, anything I wanted to talk about she wouldn't care. Lastly I noticed how much we had grown apart, how different our lives were. I'm happy I don't talk to her anymore, she always pulled me down with her. I got sober. It seemed like friendship but it wasn't. We just had getting ducked up in common. Edit, thank you for all of the support and well wishes. Congrats to all of those that have gotten sober too. If you are on the fence, come on in, the water is fine. Kudos to this. I cut those people out and my mental state got 20 times better and I no longer abuse drugs. I realized I put all the effort into spending time together and they put in 0 effort in return. Same here. If I am the only one reaching out and putting effort but you cannot do the same or put even a fraction of effort, their asses dropped. Friendship is a two-way street. Too bad some people don't realize this or care enough to consider it. Constantly inviting me to join their MLM business. Had to find a new hairdresser after she kept pushing Primerica on me. She lost a lot of clientele with that mess. When I realized that my friends were not loyal to me but loyal to the need of me. Always contacted me to borrow money or need counsel/advice, and I was always there for them. But when I went through some hard time, no one gave a flying duck for me. They were so self-centered, and calling/texting someone first was not fitting for their ego. Choose your friends carefully. Reddit. It's better to be alone than to be in a bad company. Edit. Spelling. I had this best friend in elementary school. He had a few quirks, but we were inseparable. As we grew up, he started having more and more mental-related issues. Depression and anxiety and a host of other things. He never wanted to go outside to play, or really do much of anything. Then the issues started getting worse. It seemed like I was talking him out of suicide almost every time I saw him. What was worse was that I was dealing with a very close family member who had just committed suicide themselves not even a month before. This was almost a daily thing and went on for months. One day I just snapped. I couldn't do it anymore. It was getting to the point that being around him was affecting my mental health. So around 7th grade, I stopped talking to him. I felt guilty at the time, but no matter what I did or said to him seemed to help him. It was almost like he was feeding off the concern we had for him. I'm much older now, and luckily I guess he kinda grew out of some of the problems he was having. Or perhaps he got a good therapist. He's doing well now last I heard, but we have so little in common now I don't think we could ever really be friends again. Got him his first software job even though he didn't deserve it. He shows to the interview wearing jeans and t-shirt. Got hired and left his desk a total shambles. He played practical jokes on myself and other teammates. He withheld important info about code so that he could maintain control. Overall selfish asshole. My favorite uncle died, 50 years old, directly after my dad and another favorite uncle, both in mid-50s. All she could do was talk about herself. Never even asked how I was doing, etc. Bye. I spent way too long trying to figure out what bye was an acronym for. Facepalm. My old high school friends had a way of making things about them and taking advantage of me when it suited them. In a way, it wasn't a surprise considering they grew up pretty rough and they had come to know that being selfish was a way to get things out of people. My issue was that they were never the givers. They just took. I can't tell you how many borrowed items I never got back, how many car rides they asked me for without paying me for gas, how many times they'd beg me to buy them things for holidays/birthdays and conveniently forgetting to give me so much as a card in exchange. The last straw was over my 21st birthday. I asked in advance if they wanted to make any plans to go out with me. Party bus, they replied. Alright, sounds cool. How much can you all contribute? Turns out they expected me to fully fund the bus so they could party on it. I remember being so hurt that I wasn't going to have a party thrown by caring friends, I was just expected to be a booze ticket. I went out to a wing place with my parents and had an apple cider martini as my first drink. I spent time with the people I could trust to care about me, and put a huge distance on the jerks who I knew couldn't. He posted nudes of his ex online and bragged about it. Good on you. People need to know that that kind of behavior is not acceptable. He would always mooch money off of me, not literally asking for it early on, but I always paid for almost anything. Later in the friendship, after starting to abuse my generosity, buying non-essentials, cigarettes, weed, etc., giving rides, even housing him and his girlfriend for a period, he started to ask me to give rides to people I didn't know, without him there, and he would ask all of my friends for money, friends who didn't even like him. Cut the ties with him after he called my then boyfriend asking for $40 when my boyfriend was broke himself. Reasoning: needed drugs. We could only talk with each other about bad things and misery. Couldn't even have a normal conversations or about any interests because the only common thing was the concert we went to and mental health issues. Sounds like an inferiority complex. Putting you down makes her feel higher on the social ladder? When they become pretentious, egotistical, and self-absorbed, I knew it was time. This has ruined multiple friendships for me. It's sad seeing someone change and knowing that all your attempts to stop the change doesn't work. Even worse when they change because of other people. I found out he was into child pornography. This guy was one of the first friends I made when I moved to Texas in 1990. We went to high school together, played games together, had adventures together. We worked at the same places, banged the same girls, played the same games, watched the same movies. We drank together, fought together, even got arrested together. He wasn't my friend. He was my brother. In the early 2000s we became roommates, 2 out of 5 people in a 3-bedroom townhome. Because of his technical acumen he handled the household IT. He'd set up a network for all of our machines and even a small media server. I had a hard drive failure. I bought a replacement and while installing my OS I went to play some Warcraft on his computer. He'd given me permission to do so, along with a password to his machine. I saw an oddly named folder on his desktop, so out of curiosity I clicked on it. Child porn. Lots of child porn. Lots of child porn. The video I clicked on had a child, no more than 5 years old, being raped. I called the cops. He was arrested. He was charged. He was convicted. He was my brother. He was one of my closest friends. He was one of the few people I'd trusted. I haven't spoken to him in nearly 2 decades. She was completely fine except she was a really huge emotional vampire without realizing it. Unfortunate that I had to stop being around her and I knew that her feelings would get way too hurt and it would cause more drama if I told her why. We were 12 years old and she wanted me to be sexually active for some reason, probably because she was. I had a boyfriend at the time, but it was a middle school boyfriend. We would hold hands and we kissed a total of 3 times. Anyway, my friend was spending the night at my house and out of the blue, she death gripped one of my boobs and said, "You're going to give him a blowjob and I'm not going to let go until you say you will." I was awkwardly laughing at first because I thought she was just joking, but she kept her grip and it started to hurt. I pretend laughed and said I would. Of course I didn't, I only did it to make her stop, but after that, I really knew I could not be her friend anymore. She was my best friend at the time, so it was really awkward when my parents would ask me why I wasn't hanging out with her and that I should be nice to her. I didn't have the courage to tell them what she had done, so instead I just got mad at them for talking about her. She had a kid at some point in high school. No idea what she's up to now. I still have her blocked on Facebook, even though we haven't spoken in many years. Whenever I invited my friend at the time to hang out his boyfriend had to join. Keep in mind I didn't mind the guy, but if the boyfriend didn't want to do XYZ we wouldn't hang out at all. If the boyfriend was sick my friend would say he has to stay home and take care of him. Eventually after months plans falling through I figured it wasn't worth the effort. Currently dealing with a girlfriend who does this. I don't understand people in relationships who have to do everything together, but I guess I'm the weird one. Wasn't really my friend but my co-worker. His younger sister was depressed and attempted suicide. While she was in the hospital, he would take off work to go see her. Turns out, instead of going to the hospital he was going out and smoking weed with his friends. This infuriates me. Duck that guy. When my best friend of 10 years fell in love with my now ex-GF of 7 years and convinced her that he would take better care of her than I ever have and a multitude of other things, that was right around the time I cut things off. My best friend moved her wedding date forward 4 months so her Christian fiancé and her could live together sooner in the eyes of the Lord. She moved her wedding date to 4 days after my due date, and due to it being the birth of my first child I couldn't guarantee what state I'd be in, so I apologized and declined being her maid of honor after explaining my concerns and stating she deserved a better maid of honor. To which her family began to call me selfish for not putting their daughter first over my body and unborn baby. I realized she played victim and twisted the story and told them a completely different reason. I pretty much stopped being friends with a dude because he was chronically late. Like, would show up to dinner 2 hours after our agreed upon time, or would fall asleep and not show up at all. At a certain point, that just come off as blatant disrespect for someone else's time. Was friends with Sarah since high school, and when we got to college she decided she didn't want to be friends with our friend, Jane, anymore. So instead of telling Jane that, she decided to ghost her. Still, Jane realized she wasn't invited to Sarah's birthday and confronted me about it. There was no way I could lie without it being obvious, so I told her the truth. Then I immediately told Sarah that I had to tell Jane the truth. She was very understanding, said she didn't care and that she was happy it was out. Then last minute she canceled her birthday party saying she was sick. I said to her that I was sorry I wasn't going to see her and wished her a speedy recovery. Then the night of her birthday rolls around and I see on Facebook our mutual friends are posting about being at Sarah's birthday. She was never sick, she just uninvited me and a couple of other friends who had ties to Jane. I was so hurt and angry at this person I had always considered one of my good friends. I knew after that I would never be able to trust or want to be around someone like that. So I never talked to her again. One friend when I was young was a huge attention seeker and would often use me as a punching bag to impress his other friends. I couldn't ride a bike till I was 9 and he went around telling everyone about it, as well as a story about how I apparently shat on his bathroom floor. A friend who was in the same class as him in 6th form years later told me that he told her the same story. Like of all the good stories of us he could have chose, he went with that one. Duck that guy. My best friend from middle school to high school began using heroin and tried to get me into it as well. She overdosed the day I called and told her parents. She survived but is not on good terms with her family last time I heard anything about her. You did the right thing. Right on. Must have been hard as hell though. Talking badly about me behind my back. Fake friends. A good red flag of this is if they tell you their other friend's business. Most likely, they're doing it to you too. Thanks for listening to another episode of Reddit X. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any stories. Feel free to share your own stories below in the comments. Have a good day.